Welcome to Gathering Momentum for Your Life. My name is Christine Casten, and we are just doing this interactive devotional. It is live. It is something that you have a chance to join in on. You're welcome to post at any point in time. I would love to hear where you're coming from. And just remember, we actually do this through something called Restream. So what happens is that this goes out to all of our social media. So you might be on YouTube, you might be on Facebook, either on my page or on the Warrior Commission TWC page, or you might be on LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm not sure where you might be coming from. So as you post, you may not see other people's posts because it shows up here, but it doesn't always show up if they're on a different social media. So just know that if I'm responding to stuff, it's probably, and that you're not seeing, it's probably because it's on somebody else's social media. So I just wanted to welcome you. Today we are going to be moving a little bit further into this book that we're using kind of as a springboard. It's not something you obviously have to read to be able to do this. It's just kind of a point that creates talking points for us. And the book, just you may have seen it, but this is what the book looks like. I would show it, hold it up in my hands if I could, but it turns out backwards for you. So that doesn't work very well when you're trying to figure it out. It's available on Amazon if you're interested. It's an interactive devotional as well. That can take you deeper. We're just covering little pieces of it. So again, just feel free to post. Let me see where you're coming from. I've got the chat open. It's ready to roll. So feel free to jump in at any point in time. Today, we are actually going to be talking about we're moving into the chapter that is called Charting Your Course Code of Honor. And in that, there's this one little part that says we nurture our own relationships with Him and pour encouragement into the development of others around us. One of the things that I have realized in the process of my journey, I'm a very relational person. If you haven't figured that out, I love the interaction. I love it when you guys respond. I love for you to actually help drive the conversation and explore things that you're interested in learning or us talking about. So again, feel free to post. But one of the things that I have discovered in my process of meeting people all throughout the body of Christ is that there's a real difference between relational and interactive. Interactive is, hey, nice to see you, good to see you. You have a brief exchange, and then you go on, but you never actually connect in a heart-to-heart way. This podcast actually would be more of an interactive type of podcast rather than a relational one. Although there are some people that join me typically who are relational and are friends of mine, but also there are people that are running mates, and there are people who I have found heart connections with. And that's one of the things that I really want to explore right now is, what is the difference between someone who you feel like you have a deep relationship with versus someone that you feel like is really just more interactive with you. Feel free to share your thoughts on that. What's the difference? Or maybe I should even ask, what's the benefit of being more of a relational, of having more of a relational connection? What is the benefit that we have in our lives that our relational interaction actually helps us? And I thought about a few things. So go ahead and be posting. I'll be pulling those in as I talk about these things. But one of the things I think that is important when we're more relational is we choose to be open. We choose to be vulnerable, if you will. And everyone's like, oh no, be vulnerable. I can't let people see who I am. And the reality is if you're with people who truly are also relational and vulnerable, they're safe. And that's the thing that I think we're also looking for is, what is that safety factor look like when we're interacting with people? What are we looking for when we're looking for safe people to have relationship with? Anyone is welcome to post. I think for me, one of the things I'm looking for is maturity. I'm looking for someone who is able to have a sense of honor where I know that what I tell them is going to be held in confidence if needed. I also am looking for someone who is not going to be overly focused on themselves in the process of our conversation. That it's not going to just be all about them. There's times for that in every relationship, but one of the things that I think we could grow in as a body of believers is learning what it is to truly be relational and learning how to be relational, how to have relationship with people that is healthy and has good boundaries and where you don't feel like um, you're going to be taken advantage of or used. That there's this mutual interchange and exchange that happens in that process. Something that I bring something to the table and that person brings something to the table. And I'm just as excited to hear what that person's bringing as they might be, hopefully, to see what God draws out in me through our conversation. So there's a synergy that happens that I think is really, really important when we're building relationship. Most of our interactions are just that, they're interactions. To me, they're more surfacey. They might be very genuine. People might be present in the moment, but there's no actual vulnerability in that. There's sometimes even a wall. There's a, oh, hey, how are you? Tell me all about how you're feeling and what's going on in your life. And then when you say, well, what's going on in your life? And they go, oh, well, I've got so much going on. And they just kind of blow it off and they don't share. Well, that's not relational. That's actually a bit of a protective mechanism that says, I'm not going to let you in. And even though we have time to have that conversation, and even though you're interested in hearing my heart, I'm afraid to share it. And that's one of the things that I think is important for us to consider when we want to be relational with people is we have to take the risk to share our heart. Now, one of the things that happens is people sometimes face rejection or they've experienced rejection in the past. And that's something that's really hard to get over. It does take courage, and it does take a choice to step into something that maybe hasn't worked in the past as well, to put yourself out there. But one of the things that sorry about that bump, but one of the things that my husband and I were talking about not long ago was we were talking about that there are times when we've moved in our first 14 years of marriage, we moved 7 times. So has anyone else out there moved that many times? I'm just curious if anyone's like, been even close to that. Yes, no, how many times? 14, 14 times. Wow. 14 times in I don't know how many years that was for you, but for me, it was 7 times in the first 14 years. And then we've also moved again. So we have 8 times in our marriage now that we've moved. And in that, every single time we've moved, I've had to make a choice to go into a new place. And I don't always have someone to go with me because my husband, he works during the day and my work is at home. So I have a little bit more flexible schedule and I'm able to go and do things that I may not necessarily have like a whole group that goes with me to do it. And it does take courage. And I've had rejection in the past and I've had experiences where people have not accepted me or not embraced me in the way that you would always hope. But I've also learned that there's value in those relationships that I take the risk to try out. Not all of them work out. That's okay. But those that do, they move from that interactive place into that heart to heart place. And there's just a vulnerability that comes in that space. And there are deep, deep conversations that I've been able to have with people. I'm a deep person, so I like that. But there are deeper conversations I've been able to have. Have any of you, do any of you have any thoughts about that? Advice? Is anyone relational out there versus interactive that you might want to share something? I would love to see it. There's something. Oh yes, okay. Carol is here. Carol, thank you for joining us. She says my first 20 years was moving on average every 2 years. Wow, that's like 10 times, guys. Sometimes several times a year, and then 2 years in one place. That's a lot of moving, and I bet, Carol, you've learned how to meet people and how to get yourself out there so that you could connect to people. There are things that happen in those moves because you don't even really get a chance to get established. I've found that in our moves, it takes a good 2 years to really feel like you know a place and you have been there long enough to know the lay of the land and to actually start meeting people and developing relationships. But one of the things I've also learned is that as I've gotten better about learning what it is to have a deeper relationship with people, when I move, those relationships don't stop. In other words, they continue. It's not an out of sight, out of mind. It's a oh, let's continue to connect on our journey. And of course, there has to be some intentionality. Do you guys have any relationship advice, forming friendships that that, and I don't mean dating, but I mean like forming friendships. Do you have any thoughts out there that you'd like to share that maybe could encourage someone? Um, yeah, just keep at it, just keep at it. And Carol also says it's important to learn to read people, to earn who to trust, to learn who to trust and how to go deeper quicker. Oh, that's really good. That's really good, because you do learn how to see if people really seem genuinely interested. You learn how to connect to people, and the reality is, and spend time together, and you keep trying. Yeah, that is good advice. Just keep spending time together and find ways to do that. I mean, sometimes just sitting, if you've got someone who's more of an ADHD type of person and you're taking them to a coffee house and you're saying, hey, let's sit and talk, for them, it would be much better if you were maybe going on a walk somewhere. You maybe go walk with them to a park, grab the coffee and go, walk around the neighborhood or something like that. And then that way there's some activity, so that keeps them physically moving, but they're able to have that conversation too. That's just a little trick I've learned in, again, reading people. As thank you for sharing that. And then the other part of it, I think, is that the Lord created us for relationships, and so we're wired to be in a relationship. And yes, we want to learn what is vital to you and look for people who have the same values. That is really wisdom, because if you really have a disconnect, it's not that you can't find common ground. You can, but you have to work a little bit harder to find that common ground. And then you also want to be able to be free to share. There have been times I've been in relationships with people where I didn't feel like I could actually share something openly without them not receiving it. So sometimes you have to be wise with how you step into those conversations, to see if people are able to go there and are willing to connect with you in those places. But one of the things that's been a grand connection for me is just finding people who really are excited about the Lord. And I've found that people who are excited about talking about Him, they're almost like dying on the vine, because there's very few people who actually want to have that conversation in this world. And yes, lots of nodding. We have lots of nodding. Yes, that's true. There are a lot of people who really want to have a conversation about the Lord, but don't feel like they have enough wisdom, or don't feel like maybe they're prepared to talk about that. And sometimes just being able to gently enter into a conversation with them opens them up and allows them to have a place where they can connect with you in that space, and what God's doing in their life and what's happening. And not everyone, right? But that is one area where, at least for a lot of people in the Warrior Commission, we have come to this place where so many of I get to talk to all the people when they're new and when they're thinking about joining our community. And it's been really interesting how many people have said, I just really want to be able to talk about God, and I want to talk about what Jesus is doing, and I want to grow, but I just feel really challenged to find people around me who want to have those conversations. And so I'm like, well, this is the place, because we are so excited to have those conversations. And so we found a group of people who are able to do that, to be excited about the journey, to be excited about what God's doing and how He's opening us up. So as we continue to explore this relational component versus just being interactive, this opportunity to connect, a lot of times the way we connect in the Warrior Commission is through our identity statements. As we go through our training, we learn what it is to put who we are into words so that we can share that with others, and then others are able to connect to us from that place. And it's this beautiful place of connection because we don't have to posture, we don't have to pretend, we don't have to try to be, accepted, or to fit a certain mold. We just get to come in who God says we are, and that's a beautiful place. So, do you guys have any other comments before we wrap this up? I just want to give everyone a chance to say anything else about words of wisdom with relationship, words of wisdom with what it is to grow and develop together. I mean, I will say this: um, there is there is so much acceleration in my life when I have other people around me who are also growing, because what they learn and what they're sharing stimulates my growth, and it challenges me in a great way, and it just helps me really embrace all that is possible, and what God might have for us in that time and in that place. So as you go about your week, and before you come back next week when we talk about some other things, um, I just want to encourage you in this. And Shannon, thank you for being so vulnerable. You're being vulnerable. I appreciate that. This is one of my areas of weakness, she says. And that's true. It can be an area of weakness. It's something that we get to be intentional with it, and we get to really try it out. And so find someone in your area of influence, in your life, that you feel like you could practice this with. Just practice and try it out, and see if you can find that deeper place, or ask those deeper questions to know each other in a better way. Let's not just stay on the surface. Let's move past the surface into the heart to heart. And I believe that a lot of the things in our society would shift. I really feel like we're at a place of invitation to step into something that takes us into the deep. It takes us into the connection. It takes us past something that truly gives us a very little affirmation or encouragement. It's not a life link, it's just that interactive check the box. Let's move past that, and let's find those people, not everyone, but let's find those people who you can do this with, so that you can grow and develop, and really step into the fullness of who you are in Christ, so you can practice your identity, so you can learn and grow and support another person and pour out on someone else, so that you're not just, navel gazing, but also so that they can do that with you. So I encourage you to find someone that you can do those things with. I look forward to seeing you next week, when we will talk a little bit more about this chapter. I'll find something else to pull out and we'll talk about it. And I hope that you guys have an incredibly blessed day. Thank you for joining me, for those who were here. And I just leave you with this video so that you can just think about these things before you go about your day, and enjoy what God has to say with you, or to you, in this moment.